Okay, this video is about a book review of the book called The Closing of the American Mind. It's written by Allan Bloom in 1987. It was actually a great book. I read it several times. I liked it so much. And it's going to bring up some important things related to current events. This is the fire in Rome in 64 AD, and this is Nero, the emperor who fiddled when Rome burned. Okay? And there's something very similar going on right now in France. Not too long ago, the great cathedral Notre Dame burned down. Currently, there's lots of problems in the streets of the cities of France, including Paris. And this guy right here, the ruler, is enjoying the music, the fiddling around of, the rock concerts here with this music celebrity, Elton John. Okay, so that is not really helping too much with Paris. So the great city of Paris, the greatest cathedrals ever built anywhere in the whole world. Notre Dame's already been burnt down, and now other buildings in Paris and French cities are burning down, and he doesn't seem unhappy about it. He seems rather happy about it. That would be my concern. And let's talk about how that relates to this book, The Closing of the American Mind by Allan Bloom. He was a professor in the humanities, University of Chicago. He was a real bright guy. He could read in Greek and translate these books, and he actually did translate these books as well. All the Greek texts, like Plato's Republic, for example, he had a famous translation of that. Allan Bloom lived from 1930 to 1992. So here he goes. The essence of philosophy is the abandonment of all authority in favor of individual human reason. So one of the good things about learning about philosophy is that you learn to be able to think, to not just accept things as what you're told. And to that extent, it can be a good thing. Okay, so now he continues, Allan Bloom. The 1960s were a time of rejection of the Western tradition. This loss of sense of any distinction between what is great and lasting and what is merely clever and ephemeral is a loss that may never be restored. The awareness of the great achievements of the past is what points the beginner upward. It's like Aristotle said, the poets and the writers, they give you a sense of what could be. And I remember, I went to Stanford back in the 1980s, and we had to take a one-year course, 3/4 of it, of Western civilization. And that was my favorite class that I ever took in 4 years there. It got me to read all the classic books of ancient Greek civilization, Roman civilization, etc. I thought it was a great course. Now they canceled the course. Jesse Jackson went over there and said, hey ho, Western Civ has got to go. But they don't have anything good to replace it with. It's one thing to get rid of something from the past, but have something good to replace it. But they don't have anything. There is nothing to replace it. Knowledge of the ancient Greeks and Romans is a very valuable thing. I think about that all the time as I make comparisons to modern things. Okay, Allan Bloom continues. Real education responds to a felt need. There is no real education that does not respond to a felt need. Anything else acquired is a trifling display. And that's a great point too. What do you remember from grade school and high school? You remember learning how to type because that was useful. Learning how to drive a car because that was useful. Learning how to talk to girls, that was useful. Learning how to play a sport, that was useful. But all that other vocabulary lists and all that other nonsense from grade school and high school, you don't remember it because it was a waste of time. Something forced upon you externally that wasn't of value to you intrinsically. Okay. Allan Bloom continues, the liberally educated person is one who is able to resist the easy and preferred answers, not because he is obstinate, but because he knows other worthy considerations. Okay, I've had that experience too with college students. They'll tell me that they took all these science classes and it helped them to learn science, but they still couldn't articulate anything. It's from reading books on their own and from studying the humanities and having conversations with other people who are interested in these things that they become sophisticated in conversation and able to articulate what's relevant to their own thoughts and feelings, but to describing other things, including related to science. You're an inarticulate, bumbling fool if you don't practice conversation and reading. You can't effectively talk about the sciences. There's a lot of people in the sciences who are bright but are not articulate. Okay, he continues. The liberally educated, there is no real teacher who in practice does not believe in the existence of the soul. Yeah, there's a personal relationship enhances education, conversations between people. Okay, Allan Bloom continues. The law may prescribe that a male nipple is made equal to a female nipple, but they still will not give milk. Allan Bloom continues, a society's greatest madness seems normal to itself. The self is the modern substitute for the soul. rock music is junk food for the soul. The most successful tyrant is not the one that uses force to assure uniformity. It is the one that removes the awareness of other possibilities. And for example, I believe, as John Taylor Gatto had said, that people just can't even realize that there's another way to learn than school. There's much better ways to learn than the school environment. Think about what you learned. When I wanted to learn how to wrestle, you go to practice because you want to win. You learn a technique, okay? In school, they force you to learn something you don't want to learn. Can you imagine as an adult going to have to sit in a classroom for 8 hours a day, listening to lectures about things you don't want to hear about? Okay, the next one by Allan Bloom. There is one thing a professor can be absolutely certain of. Almost every student entering the university believes, or says he believes, that truth is relative. Students in this country are being intellectually maimed by relativism in our classrooms. Because we have rejected moral absolutes, the curriculum has no central reference point to revolve around and no foundation upon which to rest. What he really should say is because we've rejected God and the Bible. Okay, let's continue. Allan Bloom says the idealism of the founding fathers has been explained away as mythical, selfishly motivated, and racist, and so our culture has been devalued. Religion, too, has been explained away, but this has now left us without a standpoint from which to understand our experience as humans. Okay, if once you get rid of man created in the image of God, all bets are off. You have unleashed chaos. Okay, and we're starting to feel that. France is feeling that right now, and that same chaos is coming to the United States with an open border. Okay, what do you think is going to happen here? The same thing. All these great historical landmarks are going to be burned down and destroyed. After the communist revolution in Russia, they burned down 50,000 churches. Okay, they burned down 50,000 churches. Okay, do you understand that? That's what's going to happen. These beautiful cathedrals in France are going to be destroyed. Is that what people really want? I mean, what good is that? Billions of dollars used to flow into France every year from all the tourists coming to France. You burn down the cathedrals, you want to burn down the Louvre Museum too? Then why would anyone want to go visit France without the wonderful museums, the wonderful art museums, the wonderful cathedrals? Why else go to France? For wine, you can go to Napa Valley. You can go to the liquor dealer around the corner. Okay, Allan Bloom continues. Nobody believes that the old books do or could or even could contain the truth. Tradition has become superfluous. That's because young people and a lot of people, they're ahistorical idiots. There's tons of great stuff in those old books. In those old books of ancient Greece and Rome and other cultures that we can learn from the past. So Allan Bloom continues, the professors of humanities are in an impossible situation and do not believe in themselves or in what they do. Well, I'll tell you what, I do believe in it. I'll tell you, I look at Christianity and you can ask me, you go to a psychologist, they can't answer a question. What is a good man? What is good art? What is good architecture? I can tell you, good architecture is look at the cathedrals. You want good art? Look at what you see in Rome, in the Vatican, Michelangelo, Raphael, Caravaggio, and there's lots of other great ones too. The Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood, John Everett Millay, Edmund Layton. There's tons of them. There's tons of them, okay? What is a good example of behavior? Look at the saints. Look at Jesus Christus, okay? I can answer all these questions very easily. Christianity gives you a worldview that you can answer all these questions quite simply. Whereas you go to some psychologist, their values change every 20 years. Whatever new fad comes along, it changes. The 10 Commandments don't change. Okay, religion gives you a worldview that enables you to perceive the world, and it gives you an alternative, objective viewpoint to understand things by seeing them from different perspectives. Okay, Allan Bloom continues, but if the students were really to learn something of the minds of any of these non-Western cultures, which they do not. Yeah, multiculturalism doesn't mean learn about other cultures, it just means destroy Western culture. Theoretically it should, but in actuality it typically does not. But if the students were really to learn of the minds of these non-Western cultures, which they do not, they would find that each and every one of these cultures is ethnocentric. All the cultures are ethnocentric. All of them think that their way is the best way and that other ways are inferior. Only in the Western nations, in other words, those influenced by Greek philosophy, is there some willingness to doubt the identification of the good with one's own way. So only in Western culture influenced by Greek philosophy is the culture not ethnocentric or not fully ethnocentric. One should conclude from the study of non-Western cultures that not only prefer their own way, but believe it to be the best way, to believe it to be superior to all others as primary and even natural, is exactly the opposite of what was intended by requiring students to study these cultures. The reasons for non-Western closedness or ethnocentrism is clear. Men must love and be loyal to their families and their peoples in order to preserve them. Men must love and be loyal to their families and their peoples in order to preserve them. Only if they think their own things are good will they rest content with them. A father must prefer his child to other children, a citizen their own country to others. That is why there are myths to justify these attachments. Students in this country are being intellectually maimed by relativism in our classrooms. Okay, because they're being told to devalue their own history, their own culture, their own traditions and families. They don't value them, they don't protect them, they're going to lose them, okay? You know, all these churches being burned down, these museums being burned down, that's where things are headed. We don't want that. A lot of good has come from the past. We should preserve the good parts. Okay, so he continues, Allan Bloom, because we have rejected moral absolutes, the curriculum has no central reference point to revolve around and no foundation upon which to rest. He's indirectly saying because you've rejected man as created in the image of God. That's what starts the whole thing going in a good direction. Allan Bloom continues, the failure to read good books both enfeebles the vision and strengthens our most fatal tendency, the belief that the here and now is all there is. As it now stands, students have powerful images of what the perfect body is and pursue it incessantly. Yeah, you just click on YouTube and you see, six-pack abs and all this stuff related to that. Allan Bloom continues, but deprived of literary guidance, they no longer have any image of the perfect soul, and hence do not long to have one. They do not even imagine that there is such a thing. Okay, continuing with Allan Bloom's quotes from Closing of the American Mind. Social science and the humanities have a mutual contempt for one another. The social sciences look down on the humanities as being unscientific. The humanities view the social sciences as Philistine. And this difference comes down to the simple fact that the social sciences want to be predictive. They want to claim that man is predictable. But the humanities say the opposite. They say that he is not predictable. He has a soul. Okay, and this gets back to my previous lecture about the deliberate destruction, dumbing down of the American mind. What that was about was making people predictable so they would fit into behaviorism, B.F. Skinner, and be easy to control because you only control them by external rewards. Here's a little food, here's a little money, now shut up and do as you're told. Versus somebody who's a Christian who believes in a God and right or wrong, they don't care as much about what they're going to be told by some ruler, authority, or so-called phony expert. They act out of their own intrinsic values, okay? They're harder to control. That's partly one of the reasons why all tyrants want to get rid of Christianity, because it creates too many highly energized, independent people. Those people will have many great creative achievements. Look at the art of the world. Name one culture, one society as close to Christianity in producing beautiful art. There's nothing that's produced 5% of the art of Christianity. And also, don't say Christianity is intolerant. Anybody can be a Christian. Anybody can simply stay there and say, I want to be a Christian. Okay, now you're a Christian. It is the most open-minded, open membership club in the world. Anyone can join. Okay, let's see. Now, here's one of the things, like I said about psychology. In many ways, a lot of modern psychology is a joke. It changes every 20 years, okay? It can't even tell you what a man or a woman is. It can't tell you what the meaning of life is. It can't tell you what it means to be good. It can't tell you what a good book is. It can't make value judgments. It's so non-judgmental, it can't tell you almost anything. And what I'm basically saying is the psychology embedded in Christianity is much better than the psychology embedded in psychology. Okay, you look, for example, at Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the ones that gave up their addiction to become Christians that have the highest success rate. Okay? All right, and then you want to see good art, good literature? Christianity can tell you in 5 seconds. Good literature, Christmas Carol, Les Miserables by Victor Hugo, Brothers Karamazov by Dostoevsky, Christmas Carol is by Charles Dickens. I talked about some of the art already. Want to know a good movie in Christianity? Sure, fine. 10 Commandments starring Charlton Heston. It's a Wonderful Life starring Jimmy Stewart. Easily. What's Good Behavior? Jesus Christ and the Saints. It's easy. Psychology can't answer those questions. How can it guide you to good life when it can't even tell you what a good life is? How can it explain male-female relationships when it can't even tell you what a man or a woman is? All right? That's why, in many ways, a lot of modern psychology is in many ways kind of a joke, just like, conventional medicine is for chronic disease. Okay? And quite often the psychologists just push you over to a psychiatrist and say, take these pills, take these pills. Look at Jordan Peterson recommending that, all these people take psychiatric medications. That's ridiculous. Okay? Okay, so Allan Bloom continues. The radical truth, a well-kept secret, is that the colleges do not have enough to teach their students. Not enough to justify keeping them for 4 years, probably not even for 3 years. If the focus is on careers, as it so often is, there is hardly one specialty outside of the hardest of the hard natural sciences, which requires more than 2 years of preparatory training prior to graduate studies. The rest is just wasted time. Okay, so unless you want to get a liberal arts education and become articulate and have a sense of history and a sense of current events related to that, then why even take these extra classes? It's a big rip-off waste of time. So like I said, once you unmoor yourself from a God-based worldview and from a liberal arts education, liberal means education for a free man rather than for a slave, like in the ancient Greek and Roman days, okay? Okay, so then he says the graduate departments are in trouble because there's a shortage of academic jobs. Well, yeah, there's going to be a shortage of academic jobs in the humanities if everybody thinks the humanities are joke and doesn't teach them anymore, and then you're going to have all these ahistorical, poorly articulate persons coming out of these departments not able to speak. And I know a lot of young people, I know a lot of old people that are not articulate, and they get pushed around in life because they can't speak up for themselves. Okay, Allan Bloom continues. The importance of these college years for an American cannot be overestimated. They are civilization's only chance to get to him. What do we read for? We read to seek an enlargement of our being. We want to be more than ourselves. In reading great literature, I become 1,000 men and yet remain myself. Those of us who have been true readers of all our life seldom fully realize the enormous extension of our being to which we owe authors. We realize it best when we talk to an unliterary friend. He may be full of goodness and good sense, but he inhabits a tiny world, one in which we would feel suffocated. Allan Bloom from The Closing of the American Mind. So it's a great book, and that's kind of the point is, if you let go of Western traditions, history, culture, civilization, and all that goes with it, what have you got to replace it? Take a look at Paris, France, burning down in fire, okay? The cathedrals burning down, the Paris Library burning down. You don't think that's coming next to America and to the rest of Europe? Is that what anybody wants? We should preserve our traditions, our history, our great cathedrals, our great libraries, our great literature, because otherwise you're going to lose it. And I don't see anything to replace it. Look at modern art. It's a joke. It's a bunch of junk. Do you want that to replace all these great works of art from 1500s to 1900 and some of the great stuff done in the last century? I hope not. I hope, we don't want what happened to France. We don't want that to happen in America. So, people being educated and informed and have a sense of what's going on and a sense of what the real alternatives are, preservation of the past, otherwise it's destruction. You don't want that. We don't want that. We want peace. We want to maintain our good things. So, anyways, hope that was interesting and helpful.